Greetings and welcome to the Seattle Law of One podcast. The title of today's episode is Fearless. One of the funniest things about the Law of One is the understanding, for lack of a better word, that the world we see around us is designed to appear negative and frightening. It's a feature of the system, not a bug. Why? Because apparently our third density incarnations are designed to be a closed book test, to see if we can choose love over fear, to take the leap of faith in believing that all is well and all will be well, in spite of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. How can we learn to respond to what we see around us every day with love rather than fear? To always know in our hearts and minds that there's no thing or no one we ever need to be afraid of? Let's find out. My name is Jonathan Tong. I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found in the list of study groups at the L&L Research website shown on your screen. We do also have a Facebook group, and we do meet twice a week on Zoom, Tuesdays from 3 to 5 p.m. Pacific Time, Saturdays 8 to 10 a.m. Pacific Time. You don't have to live in Seattle or anywhere near Seattle to join our Facebook group or our Zoom sessions. Anyone who's interested and available is welcome to join. Just contact us at seattleLawOf1@gmail.com to get on our mailing list. We send out emails once a week with Zoom links and information on what we're talking about that week. We do also have a YouTube channel where we keep recordings of previous podcast episodes, as well as recordings of our monthly Q&As with Jim McCarty. Just go to our YouTube channel and click on the subscribe button to get notifications when we upload new videos, and contact us at seattleLawOf1@gmail.com if you'd like to join any of our Q&A sessions with Jim McCarty. As mentioned, our topic for today is Fearless. Let's go ahead and meet our panelists. Panelists, let our viewers know who you are and where you're calling from, starting with Morris.
I'm Morris Hoagland, calling from Lafayette, Louisiana, and I've been a student of the Law of One for a while.
So great to have you on, Morris. Thanks for joining us. And Andrea?
Hi, everybody. My name's Andrea Triff. I'm calling from Calgary, Alberta, just up north. And really excited to be here. Thank you for having me again.
Always a joy to have you on. Thanks for joining us, Andrea. And Todd?
Hello, everyone. I'm Ted. I'm calling today from Colombia, and I'm very happy and thankful for being here once again in this podcast, and also participating in the Law of One community.
We're always happy and thankful to have you joining us today, especially from the beautiful country of Colombia. Did want to remind our viewers, as always, that none of us here are experts or authorities on the Law of One. We are normal people like you, just talking about spiritual things that seem to be of significance to us. Anything that any of us say could be wrong. You're welcome to disagree with anything or everything that any of us say. If you are already familiar with the entity known as Quo and the Law of One, you might want to skip ahead to the chapter on podcast survey. Otherwise, for those who are new to the Law of One, you can think of it as a set of spiritual teachings based on the understanding that all is one and that one thing is love. All of the reading passages we're looking at today came to us through the process known as channeling. You can think of channeling as a form of telepathic communication between humans and entities such as angelic beings, extraterrestrial beings, inner planes beings, spirits of deceased, higher self, etc. A channel basically serves as a mouthpiece for other entities to speak through, and in this case, those entities would appear to be of extraterrestrial origin. There are two types of channeling that have been developed by our friends at L&L Research. Trance channeling is when the channel is in a trance state, meaning they are subconscious or unconscious as if asleep, meaning they are not at all aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're saying them. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Ra back in the early 1980s. Conscious channeling is when the channel is in a conscious but deep meditative state, meaning they're only somewhat aware of what words are coming out of their mouth as they're saying them. This is how contact was made with the entity known as Quo, starting back in the mid-1980s up to present day. Who is Quo? You can think of Quo as a group entity made up of three social memory complexes: Ra at 6th density, Latui at 5th density, Hatan at 4th density. You can think of a social memory complex as a planetary consciousness. It would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one group mind. You can think of densities or dimensions as different levels of consciousness or different levels of reality, since those two things are so closely intertwined. Imagine, if you will, that the elements of earth, fire, water, and air have some form of consciousness, as many indigenous peoples have been saying they do for centuries. We refer to that as first density. You can think of second density as the level of consciousness of plants and animals. Clearly, a big quantum leap in consciousness above and beyond that of what we would normally refer to as inanimate matter. You can think of third density as the level of consciousness of humans and cetaceans like whales and dolphins. Again, a significant quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of plants or other animals. You can think of fourth density as the level of consciousness of the social memory complex. Again, it would be as if the entire human population of Earth was merged into one single group mind. Clearly, a quantum leap above and beyond the consciousness of an individual person. You can think of fifth and sixth densities as whatever would be comparable quantum leaps above and beyond fourth density. There is much more to be said on that, and if you're interested, check out our podcast episode on densities and dimensions. Otherwise, for now, suffice it to say, the entity known as Quo appears to be made up of three planetary consciousnesses: Ra at sixth density, Latui at fifth density, and Hatan at fourth density. First contact with Quo was made by the L&L research channeling team in 1986, almost 2 years after the end of the Ra contact in 1984. And they have been channeled every month since then, up to present day, by the L&L research channeling team. Transcripts of those sessions can be found at the L&L Research Conscious Channeling Library shown on your screen. Having said all that, let's talk a little bit about podcast survey. If you've enjoyed watching the Seattle Law of One podcast, could you do me a huge favor and do the 3-minute podcast survey in the comment section of this video? It may or may not be clear to you, but I've put a fair bit of time and thought into putting these videos together, and I would love to know how long our viewers have been studying the Law of One, about how many podcast episodes have you watched. What do you enjoy most about them? What do you enjoy least about them? What suggestions do you have for improvement? Do you watch the pop quizzes? Any feedback you care to share? That's literally all there is to it. Feel free to write as much or as little as you want. I would value anybody's feedback. Otherwise, let's go ahead and take a look at a couple passages on leap of faith. On January 14th, 2002, Quo said, "The viewpoint of the self standing upon a prominent precipice and making the self ready to take a leap of faith into that which is your destiny is the basic situation with which you deal. There is the eagerness and the anticipation of the adventure that awaits, for it is that soul's destiny which you have created before this incarnation as the pattern for the incarnation which you feel is now ready to unfurl before you as the marker, the guidepost, the beginning of the great work. The dual feeling of anticipation and weariness is not so surprising when one considers the nature of spiritual paradox. Knowing beforehand that there is a great deal of work to accomplish, and yet seeing this work within the eyes of the workaday world, the illusion of this density, and translating the amount of work that lies ahead into the ordinary terms, causes one to feel a great burden, a great weight upon the soul, and this expresses itself in various ways in the physical vehicle, in the emotional vehicle, in the mental vehicle, and to a lesser extent, within the spiritual vehicle as well." A lot of fascinating things to unpack in this passage, and I've been talking long enough already, so I'm going to pass this straight to the panelists. Boris, any thoughts, reflections on anything from this passage?
Well, we have learned over our many opportunities to hear from Quo that we all basically lined up for that lottery ticket to incarnate here on Earth. We were excited about that opportunity, but from one of the regressions from one of the folks associated with L&L, we learned that prior to coming to Earth, there was a certain sadness, excitement about the opportunity, but a certain sadness of going to what they described as that dark place, Earth, where we would have to forget everything we know now and come in and learn all over again. But they chose to make that incarnation here in order to serve and help those on this planet that were evolving. So both some anxiety and excitement. Most of the people watching this podcast who this information resonates with probably are wanderers and experienced that prior to this incarnation.
Indeed. Yeah, I think Quo said it takes a certain amount of foolishness or bravery or whatever to take that leap of faith, knowing that you're going to forget everything when you come into the incarnation and you might not remember. For viewers who didn't know, Morris Hoagland is vice president on the board of L&L Research and has been for the last 45 years or so, an old friend of Jim and Don's and Carla's, and knew them before the Raw Contact even started. So always a joy to have you here. The rest of us are just normal people. But it's nice to have you here, Morris, as well as everyone. Andrea, did you have any thoughts on anything from this passage?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I really resonate with the weirdness. Like the saying is, "I'm tired, boss." In a very, this is amazing to know about, to learn about the things that resonate and they connect, and you're like, yep, yes, that makes sense. This makes sense. I understand this. I know this. But doesn't take away from the weight of it, right? At the same time, there is that anticipation of like, okay, now that I know this, what's around the corner? What's coming up next? And that familiarity of being home and going home in a sense, right? Because you're following a path, whatever path that is. And if it's a detour or you get stuck in traffic or you lose your plane ticket and you get on the plane, it's no longer the, oh, this is inconvenient. It's more the, oh, okay, I would guess I was meant to take this plane instead. Fair. I guess I was meant to stay in traffic longer for whatever reason. Okay. So it's really a bit of that comfort to know that these things are not just annoyances that are happening in the daily incarnation. It's more you're kind of being guided by yourself, down this path, whatever this path is. You don't have to know the reason, just kind of go with the flow and see what's around the next corner. So it's exciting.
Yeah, and it's easy to forget that you have that guidance and that support with you at all times. And that is why I chose the title graphic for this episode. It seems that it is the perfect visualization for that leap of faith that we have to take in wanting to serve, but not necessarily knowing that all is well and all will be well. This graphic, by the way, came from a David Attenborough documentary. It was from the Planet Earth series, the Cave episodes. If you look it on YouTube, it's a great introduction where they just show people leaping into this black hole that they reveal to be a giant cave that they are parachuting into. But yeah, boy, that visual really captured it for me. What do you think, Tot? Anything to add?
I just super resonate with Maury said in the beginning, like that's that ticket we simply agree to come. And yeah, it's just amazing, and that's what actually it happens almost every day in my experience when I wake up. And it feels like, you have the start of a new adventure every single day. It's a new adventure. You can take your experiences from the day before or from the future in your present. You are just simply in this day today. And sometimes, of course, I wonder, can I really get everything done in one day? And I ask myself that several times. And interestingly, this feeling shows every single day when I step outside my home, like when I go outside, it's like, okay, Tati, one day at a time, and trusting that each day will unfold in the way it's meant to be, and Andrea was saying as well this, like, okay, I got a delay, what is happening? So I'm also being thankful for, okay, whatever is there, like the guy who yesterday, for example, I was going to let someone to cross the pedestrian, and I was like being polite, because in Colombia people is not that polite. And I was like, okay, just go ahead. And he was like, no, go first. You take the car and go first. And I was like, okay, thank you so much, little angel. So every single action has a reaction, and it's up to you if you take the reaction in a negative or in a positive way. And then it's when we have this leap of faith.
Yeah. Yeah, and I appreciate you reminding us of what Quo and Ra both said, I believe. That is that every night when you go to sleep and every new morning when you wake up, it is a death and rebirth experience. And they said every present moment offers a death and rebirth experience as well. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing, easy to forget for sure. I did want to note that, yes, the references to taking the leap of faith for sure really refer to archetypical mind images, which I think we're going to be looking at next. Does anybody have anything else they wanted to add on this passage before we look at another passage? Sounds good. The next passage we're going to look at does indeed refer to the archetypical mind. And for viewers who are not familiar with that, you might want to go all the way back to episode 6 that we did on the archetypical mind. Otherwise, suffice it to say that the archetypical mind is often referred to as like the blueprint for third density incarnations. If your third density incarnation was like a video game, and in many ways it is, the archetypical mind is kind of like the programming or the software behind it. And it consists of 22 images representing archetypes of the mind, the body, and the spirit. And in particular, what we're going to look at is the one that is referred to as the choice. It is the 22nd archetype, which is not specifically one of the mind, body, or spirit archetypes, but it's kind of part of everything. On September 25th, 1994, Quo said, and this has been edited for brevity, the entire process of seeking within your third density illusion is one in which you become that fool. It is a process which contains the, as your Bible has called it, the valley of the shadow of death. There is in this process a rod and a staff which comforts those who walk through the valley of the shadow of death. These are the will and the faith components that ring throughout each archetypical image and are as the guiding star. For the faith that is processed will end well must be fueled by the will to persevere. Thus there is the threat of falling to one's death, the being eaten alive by the illusion, the inability to see the danger about one, for it is all about one in darkness, it would seem. Thus the image of the fool is well suited to your illusion, and is given as that motto by which each might look for inspiration and illumination of the heart. We speak of the heart, for there the love of the Creator may be found, an experience for the self, and for all other selves, as the self which is the seeker, which continues to place itself in positions similar to the walking from the cliff, willing to be vulnerable and to give without expectation of return. This archetype is the most active archetype, shall we say, though it is the last to be mastered. It is the first to be called, and the one to be called most often, my friends. Beautiful passage, and I did want to note that while the image that we see here of the choice is from the LNL Research website and is very close to the one that was used in the raw contact, there is also an image of the fool from the Rider-Waite deck, which really does show the fool like walking off the cliff without any regard to what happens below. And as Quo said, that does seem to be so central to our illusion, and certainly for this episode. What do you think, Andrea? Any thoughts on anything from this passage?
Yeah, I love that extraterrestrials or higher beings are calling us a bunch of fools bumbling about in the dark. I think it's so on point. We all kind of sometimes feel like fools just bumbling about. We have no idea what we're doing, why we're doing it. Sometimes we try to dig through and be like, oh, that's why we're doing that. Other times we're just like, I don't know, it just feels right. It gives me the warm and fuzzies. But realistically, if we don't take a perspective from the higher being and higher self, we decide to jump in and forget everything. Yeah, okay, that we would be absolutely stumbling about in the dark and holding on to whatever we can. In this case, we have a stick. A stick is important. God, we loves our sticks. But yeah, I love the way it's explained. I think it's meant in a very loving way, as a very, like you would say that to a child, like you just, yeah, I don't know. I feel a lot of love emanating from this, the fact that they understand and then they empathize with the illusion of our 3D and the challenges that we see. And I mean, we saw in 1994, let alone 2026, right? So, and that's going to be probably, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, if this video is still up somewhere in the internet, it's going to be even more resonant. So I love it.
Yeah, I sure do appreciate your sharing that. And I always have to remind myself when doing these passages or reminding the viewers that what we read came through the process of channeling, and when it came through, they were talking a lot slower than the way I read it. And the person who was saying these words really didn't know really what words were coming out of their mouths. They were just making what they thought was telepathic contact with what they believed to be extraterrestrial entities who were, as Andrea said, millions of years ahead of us in spiritual evolution. So it's always a wonder to see the love and the wisdom that comes through these passages. And in this case, the image of the guy wearing the blindfold who's about to get eaten by the illusion or the alligator there. It's super fascinating. What do you think, Todd? Any thoughts, reflections on anything here?
Well, Andrea says so many things that I was like, oh my God, you are stealing my words. But indeed, the fool, I see it as actually our best friend, at least on planet Earth, because that's the one who allow us to go through those very, very challenging experiences, and where our heart, it literally start to bright more, of course there are like dark eras or dark periods where you are not wanted to be with someone, or that the situation indeed is so challenging that you don't know how to go through it. And I remember some weeks ago I was reading an email that someone wrote to another person, and I was written, I hope that you can find in those challenges love and light. And I was like, oh my God, this is actually a very hard situation, because when you are either going through a very dark period, or when you are losing someone, or when you are missing someone, and that sentence comes to you, and I'm so like, oh my God, but the person is not here anymore. So how can I find light if I feel totally depressed? Or how can I find light if I'm seeing that my world is crumbling down? So, and then it's actually when, as we say in some parts of the world, it feels like it's time to pack your bags and leave immediately. And spiritually speaking, is not about running away, but about recognizing that when a situation has taught that you need indeed to either to learn or to teach something, it's time to close a cycle and let go and move forward. So for me, the fool is something that is really stalking to us, and it's even written here. Is the last archetype that you have to somehow achieve, if we want to put it in that word. But it's not the main character. It's not the one who is there. It's simply a tool you have to test your boundaries, but also to reckon that you are capable to go through different processes. And doesn't matter if you have flowers or you have bombs close to you. Both of them will bring you light.
Yeah, I appreciate your sharing that, and I appreciate your highlighting that last part, because that really stuck out to me in terms of the choice being the last to be mastered, but the first to be called, and the one to be called most often, whether you're experiencing what seems to be very positive catalyst or what seems to be very negative catalyst. It's a good reminder. What do you think, Morse? Any thoughts to add?
Well, we knew before coming into this incarnation it was going to be challenging. And Tat pointed out we really just can't run from these challenges, because those challenges that we've co-created for ourselves are just going to follow us. So what we look at is what Chloe shared with us is the rod and the staff to comfort us, the faith and the will. The faith to know that it's going to be okay. It might be difficult, but it's going to be okay. And the will to persevere through that difficulty, get to the end. If we don't, that catalyst, that learning opportunity is going to come back over and over.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Yeah, it is a great reminder that, as I said, like in the introduction, it's funny. One of the funniest things about the Law of One to me is the understanding, for lack of a better word, that the world that we see around us really is designed to appear negative and frightening. You're not imagining it. The world really is designed to seem really scary, specifically to test our will and our ability to persevere, I think, as you were saying, Morris. Really fascinating passage. And again, I mean, there's a million things we could unpack from this particular passage or this archetype. Does anybody else have any thoughts to add on this passage? Sounds good. Well, let's take a look at a couple passages on love over fear. On November 28th, 2004, whoops, sorry, there was two passages here. On January 5th, 2003, Quo said, "Fear is the dark side of love. Fear has its legitimacy and must indeed be embraced within the self and asked to avail its gifts to the use of the light. Fear becomes courage when the fear is faced, and the wolf that has caused the fear, rather than being fled or being slain, is invited into the heart to be loved, understood, accepted, and charmed." And on November 28th, 2004, Quo said, "There is a true hope among your peoples that is growing daily for the energies of love and trust and peace to come swelling up like buds opening into flowers in spring. When each of you chooses love over fear, you start something happening in the unseen worlds. You create an energy that is compatible with fourth density. Each time you choose to trust, to love, to have forbearance and compassion, to see the other person's point of view, and truly walk in his shoes instead of your own, you are expanding the kingdom of fourth density right where you are. And the more people that begin consciously to do this, the faster this kingdom will expand. We say to you plainly, fourth density is all but complete." I found it really interesting, that part they mentioned at the end of the first passage, where the wolf that has caused the fear, rather than fleeing from it or trying to slay it, invite it into the heart to be loved, understood, and accepted, and charmed. It does remind me of another image from the archetypical mind, which is the experience of the body, also known as the enchantress, which seems to be receiving something really scary, not a wolf, but a lion, but accepting it, inviting it, and loving it, and charming it. It appears that there is magic to be found in choosing love over fear, and I just find that fascinating. What do you think, Tot? Any thoughts on anything here?
Well, this is like I remember I heard a song about that it says something like, God has not given us the spirit of fear, but the spirit of love, looking that is not here. And when I was hearing that song like a couple of years ago, I was like, why I like this song so much? So I was checking the lyrics and I was like, now I understand it. It's like we think that maybe when fear appears, it's like we are maybe not capable to go through it, or like you are not worthy to deserve it. And then it's like I said to myself, is fear, but actually is love what is going to show up, up after that. So more or
What
less,
song is that? What song are you referring to?
I'm trying to look for it,
Oh.
and then I discovered that actually is written as well in the Bible. Timothy 1:7. I'm not a good reader of the Bible, but I was like, what? This is on the Bible? So yeah, like I will try to find the song. And for me, it's like, yeah, without this fear, you will not go maybe to different situations. So once you have it, it's like time where I'm feeling this is on my tummy, is on my head, is on my chest, or is actually maybe a reflection of someone else, because we reflect actually everything, everything around us is reflections. So it's simply just to let your body complex to ponder and to see where is this coming from and why is this appearing in our lives, and after that, not getting the reaction like as soon as possible, but just simply meditate on it, and then fear, you will see that it was not fear, it was simply like a sip of love over there telling you, like, this is a new challenge, you can go through it, what you want to achieve. So yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate your reminding us of that, Todd. Fear does seem to be such a gut reaction that really does stimulate a fight or flight response from people so often, and making oneself pause to not respond with fear, but rather respond with love instead. Yeah, that's a challenge for most of us, I think. What do you think, Morse? Anything to add?
Well, I think Pat covered it quite well. It's just the image they've used is the wolf. And the wolf is something that we have an instinctual fear of. This is the opportunity, once we recognize fear coming on, is to take a step back into our seat of consciousness, understand that fear. So instead of fight or flight, invite that into our heart, or in other words, understand the fear and what it is that is making you feel that fear. Go beyond that fear, embrace it, and that fear will dissolve.
Indeed. But it takes will and perseverance, like you said. It's not a reaction that I think comes naturally to a lot of people. So appreciate the reminder. What do you think, Andrea? Anything to add on this?
Yeah, I think you need a big stick. Going back to the pool, I think you need a big stick for fear. That's the one that you need the will and the faith to kind of go through it. But I like what was said around what Tat said around reflections, and whether it's something that's yours or it's something for you're just reflecting it for somebody else. Um, Plug for your podcast on mirrors and reflections. Really good opportunity to explore that, and how sometimes we are put in situations not for our benefit but for others, so we can reflect that to back to them. But I see fear as a scarcity mindset. If love is everything, fear is less of everything. So when fear arises, it's you are afraid of losing something, whether it's love, status, objects. You'll have pain or comfort. Comfort, you're losing something. That's where fear comes in. And I find that's interesting for the scarcity mindset, because it puts us right back into the illusion of 3D, where it's us against the world, but we are one. Therefore, the other person, the other peoples on the other side are just parts of me. They're my fingers, or they're my toes, or they're one of them is my leg. So it's not, would you look at your leg and say, no leg, I will not give you a sock today because I want the heat. You don't get the heat. It's only mine. It's like, that's a weird way of looking at it, but it's so deep in our 3D illusion that it's like, no, I am me. You are you. We are different. We are not. We are the same. We are one. So if you want the sock, you can have the sock. Cool. You get to be warm. Okay. I don't think I'm going to be cold. And if I'm cold, I'll say I'm cold and somebody will give me a sock. That's kind of how it should be. And that's where I think fear goes away if you put it in that scarcity mindset and turn it into love and say, I would give you what I have if you want it, because that's what you need. I'm not afraid that there's not going to be enough for me, because
Yeah.
I'm basically taking care of myself. You are my other self, so I'm taking care of myself.
Well said. Yeah, I appreciate your bringing up that scarcity mindset, because it does seem to be something that, let's just say, the service to self entities in charge of our political economic power structure seem intent on doing, in putting us into situations where we have to be afraid of our scarcity of resources, and something that seems to echo back to the instincts of what has been referred to as our great ape ancestors, the feelings of tribalism and defending your tribe or family or whatever from invading entities or outside entities, because you're competing for scarce resources. That is a big challenge for all of us to overcome, for sure. That might actually be a good segue into the next passage. Did anybody have any other thoughts to add on this passage before we do that? Let's take a look at that. This is from April 16th, 2006. And Quo said, "As we have said before through this instrument, what we see as we gaze into the mind and heart of your people as a global tribe is a troubling tendency to seek aggression and war instead of diplomacy and conversation. This tendency, multiplied throughout a power-hungry world, would result in your nation states acting aggressively in such a manner as to set off a true doomsday with their bombs. This is possible, and we would ask each of you to be aware of this tendency in the human heart toward aggression instead of patience, and so far as you are able personally, we would encourage each of you to choose communication over aggression, patience over impatience, love over fear, and hope over exclusion. What you as a person do may seem to begin and end within yourself, but we say to you that you act not only for yourself, but for humankind. The choices that you make, if made purely and with conscious intention, can change the world. Yes, you are that powerful and that magical and that influential. Really love that whole passage, especially the part about your being that powerful and magical and influential. And I think, just like they said before, that there is magic in choosing love over fear. I think there is magic in choosing communication or understanding over aggression as a response. And as they said, can change the world. What do you think, Morris? Any thoughts on anything here?
Well, the most important sentence, we would encourage each of you to choose communication over aggression, patience over impatience, love over fear, hope over exclusion. The key word is choose. It is a choice. We don't have to experience those emotions and feelings. We have a choice and need to choose how to respond to that fear stimulus.
Indeed. Yeah, and key part of that might be what Tot was suggesting, I think, which was to pause rather than reacting with the knee-jerk response of aggression or fear, but to choose to pause and reflect on it before doing that, and maybe choosing, as you said, communication instead, or love over fear. What do you think, Andrea? Anything to add?
I'll echo what Morris said. Is that choice, right? That's kind of, and to say that each of you um, choose. So not necessarily you globally choose, because globally it's hard to influence the global, and I think they recognize that in a lot of the channelings to say, yes, things are happening at the global level. However, we invite each of you to focus on yourselves, not in a service to self, but as in service to others. Kind of change yourself and you'll change the world, and that mentality. And I think that's another key piece, is that focus on the self in a positive way, to kind of align yourself with your choice, whatever that is. And then be able to, your choice and your alignment and your faith and will in that will then translate into other people being like, oh, I see you as a mirror. I too want to choose. So that's kind of how the dominoes tend to topple, right? Like you trigger one person, and then next thing you know, it amplifies by two, and then another one and another one, and next thing you know, the whole world is choosing communication or choosing patience. But yeah, it starts with the self, not in a selfish way, but in a selfless way.
Yeah, so much you said there that really resonates with me. In particular, the part about how it has been said many times by Quob that the best way to heal the outer world is to heal the inner world. And when you do that inner work and make those healings within yourself and choose love over fear, you really are saving the world. You really are changing the world. And that's such a beautiful, powerful message for sure. What do you think, Tot? Anything to add?
I was just remembering the other day someone posted in the Telegram group that is from a lot of research. One of the latest channeling from the new entities that appeared, and they were also referencing into this. And I was like, and they were like, yeah, but from the harvest, how we can help others, like with politics and so on. Why is this happening? And I was like, and the answer for these new entities were like, this is your perception. It's up to you how you want to focus your attention, where you want to put your information. It's not about the one who is doing that outside. And this is something that is observed quite often. And unfortunately is where humanity tends to focus, like tends to focus on what is this lead doing and what is this other lead doing. And sometimes it even become a kind of a small talk, like small talk even. You start with politics. And honestly, for me, it's something that it gets over analyzed and exaggerated. And the more it's talked about it and exposed, the more energy is given. So for me, it's like, why you are giving so much energy to this? Why you don't talk about like how beautiful we have the space you live? why you don't talk about like the amazing time that you are having while the rain is coming down? You know, like small things of information that actually are happening in a good way. And so why we don't take the responsibility for stopping over communication in this way of power hungry world, and instead focus on what actually make less sick our world. So I was just clapping my hands when I was reading this last channel from the new entities, and I was like, please say that quite often, because even in the community you're seeing like how the dynamics are happening, and when like political decisions are coming, and then we start to talk about more about that, and I'm like, guys, we are here not for that. But yeah, like everyone is able to do wherever he wants and wherever he wants to put their energy.
Such an important point, such an important teaching and learning that I still grapple with pretty much every day, because as one who does pay attention to, let's just call it current events, that, yeah, it really does seem like the people who are in charge of the U.S. political economic system, they really are going for doomsday. I mean, and they have said as much, that this war and current war in the Middle East, that they are doing it to bring on Armageddon and what they call the second coming of Christ. And they're looking at putting AI in charge of all our missile defense systems so that they could launch all-out nuclear holocaust, just because the computers did it and there wasn't even a person involved in it. And yeah, to me, I think like many people, yeah, I find that a little bit concerning. And yet, like you said, Tot, I think it is also just as important to realize that there's so many beautiful things happening, just the nature around us and the spiritual awakenings that are continuing to happen, like billions and billions of flowers blooming in spring, as they mentioned in a previous podcast. And it's all, like you said, a matter of kind of what you pay attention to. So appreciate that. Anybody else have any thoughts on this passage or anything else? Really enjoying the discussion. As always, I appreciate having panelists on, because they always think of things that I hadn't thought of or see things that I hadn't seen. So looking forward to more. Let's take a look at a couple passages on something that in the Law of One is referred to as psychic greetings. Psychic greetings is a term that's used to refer to what people might feel is a attack from negative entities on them. Let's take a look at a couple passages on this. First one is from March 14th, 2009. This has been edited for brevity. So Quo says, there are basically two kinds of psychic greeting. By far, the most common is the greeting of the integrated personality by those parts of the personality that are not yet integrated and that perhaps have split apart from the integrated personality, so that parts of the self attack the self as if the self were another. The other type of psychic greeting involves an actual entity other than the self. When an entity is standing close to the light, attempting to serve in some way that is above the ordinary, healing, teaching, or in some way serving others, that light reveals any small defect of character and shows to an outer entity the most likely place for a temptation or an incursion into the energy body. Consequently, those who are serving in such a way will find psychic greeting inevitable. And on May 13th, 2008, Quo said, psychic greeting can be something that occurs even with your own personality, as voices from your past spring up from your mind as thought forms, offering you hurtful messages. Whether the psychic resistance comes from within the self or outside of the personality shell, the response that removes psychic greeting is, firstly, to be fearless, and secondly, to send love and light to the greeter and to the entire transaction. A negative entity will be sickened by true love. The challenge here is that it needs to be genuine, heartfelt love, not that which is applied as a band-aid from the intellect. This love for the Creator must come from the heart. Really beautiful passages and so much to look at and unpack here, as with every other passage. But I think maybe the most important takeaway lesson that I'm getting from this is that what most people interpret as psychic greetings from some outside negative entity It's probably more coming from themselves, as they describe here, some part of yourself that hasn't been integrated fully. I find that super encouraging. What do you think, Andrea? Any thoughts on anything here?
Yeah, and it's I think this is a really really good couple of passages that kind of highlights our self-doubt. And kind of an example would be, say you're in a meeting and you're about to bring a point up in the meeting, but all of a sudden you have that voice in the back of your head that says you're not worthy to be listened to. Nothing you say is important. You're not as important as these people. You're not as good. You're not as professional. You're not as an expert. You should just be quiet. But you meant to say that message with positive, just as a, hey, this is cool, like this is, you're just bringing light to the moment. And then all of a sudden something pulls you back, whether it's your own voice or you hear somebody from your past say that and it just kind of triggers you back. um, I think it's yeah, it happens all the time. The way I see it though is it's one of those, it hurts you more than it hurts me. So if I'm hanging out in the light, and a negative entity or a negative self wants to come and throw shade at me, they have to get pretty close to throw shade at me. So it's going to hurt them a lot more than it's going to hurt me. Sure, I guess maybe I'm shaded a little bit. I'm still wearing my sunglasses. It's still nice and bright where I am. Maybe dim my light a little bit, but for them, they're going to lose a lot of that negative polarity by getting closer. So it's kind of a defense by being like, I can hold out longer than you can. So come at
Yeah.
me, bro. Uh, in a metaphysical sense, not that I'm inviting it, cause and condition, throwing it out there. But I think in a sense, it's not scary for that reason. I think we should consider it if that does come up. Don't take it to heart. Don't take it personal to say, I'm being attacked, I'm being haunted, this is the thing, oh my God, my life's going to end. You know what? Just keep doing positive things. It's going to hurt them and drain them a lot faster than it's going to drain you. They're going to leave you alone, and then you're going to recharge your light and keep on trucking on. Yeah, that's how I see it.
Sounds like a beautiful approach. Yeah. And I can't say I can't really think of many times, in spite of whatever I'm doing, that might be reaching out to others or helping others in perhaps more than ordinary way. I can't think of any times that I've experienced anything that I would really interpret as a psychic greeting. Not that I don't have any small defects in character for some entity to latch onto. I got no shortage of those, but yeah, I think part of it is just kind of what you described and being fearless and knowing that it's okay. And what you're doing is still the right thing to do, and there really isn't anything to be afraid of. What do you think, Todd? Anything to add?
I'm just hearing the laughing, and I think this is exactly the point of us inside, like saying, like, "Oh my God, this is really me. I'm doing this," and I think that's the reaction inside. Like the emotion coming is like you're laughing at yourself. What is going on? And then it's when you identify, like, yes, actually, it was not a psychic reading. I was sabotaging myself or so on. But honestly, it makes me laugh because the truth is that many of us thinks that a psychic reading or attacks, at least most of them, come from other people or other entities. And then I tell myself, wow, that's a bit egocentric. Why don't go and check yourself first before saying, yes, this is something external that is embodying my process and what's something from myself or so on. So maybe it's actually something that you haven't integrated yet, as it's said here in those different quotes, and that is why it keeps showing up. Why is this appearing? Why is this appearing in this different, maybe energetic level, or maybe this kind of type of person is appearing to me, like the boss, like or a excessive boss, or like maybe your couple, like super jealous. Why is this pattern coming again and again and again? And of course, isn't about saying that we are self-sabotaging ourselves, as I said before, but rather that being attentive to what is happening within you and why it's
Yeah.
repeating and why it's keeping appearing in different forms. So psychic readings for me is something that I say nowadays, Tati, go and check a little bit more because there is something you can work on it. And I even during meditation sometimes I sense things, and I'm like, I say to myself, okay, I'm love, I'm light. If you need something, I can just give you love and light. That's the things that you can get from me, nothing else. And then it's
Yeah.
like immediately it vanish. So like you
Nice.
get this protection. So how you protect yourself? Like, it's not about like the one is going to attack you. How do you protect yourself?
Sure. Yeah, and I appreciate you're using the term self-sabotage because that's what comes to my mind also when I think of things that could be interpreted as psychic readings. It probably goes back to a lot of insecurities that each of us may have and maybe fear of succeeding in whatever it is we're doing. So we find little ways to subconsciously sabotage ourselves or make things a little bit more challenging. So yeah, appreciate that perspective for sure. Morris, any thoughts? Anything to add?
Well, this particular passage has to do with psychic attack. A couple of decades ago, I had two episodes of psychic attack from an external source. Won't get into that. But the point for responding to that has to do with session number 95, question 24 from the raw contact. The question, if the experience of the mind has sufficiently chosen the right-hand path and its total purity approached in choosing the right-hand path, then total imperviousness to the effect of the left-hand catalyst is also approached. So Don's asking, if your heart is fully tied into service to others, are you not impervious to these attacks? Ra responds, this is exquisitely perceptive. Due to the pure, however, to the pure, all that is encountered speaks of the love and light of the one infinite creator. The purity of heart allows you to take on that external or internal psychic attack and deal with it from a position of love.
Really love that passage. It's been one of my favorites for a long time. Do you want to go ahead and read the rest of that passage about not having variant experiences and
Okay,
that?
well, you recall well. This is exquisitely perceptive. The seeker which has purely chosen the service to others path shall certainly not have a variant apparent incarnational experience. There is no outward shelter in your illusion from the gusts, flurries, blizzards of quick and cruel catalysts. We're all going to experience that. However, to the pure, all that is encountered speaks of the love and the light of the one infinite creator. The cruelest blow is seen with an ambiance of challenges offered and opportunities to come. Thusly, the great pitch of light is held high above such an one, so that all interpretation may be seen to be protected by light.
Nice. Yeah, I appreciate your sharing that. I'm going to guess there's more than a couple people watching this video who really love that passage as well. And it is a great reminder that choosing the service to others path doesn't mean that you're only going to have good things happen to you. They're saying you're not going to have an unusual experience. Seemingly negative things are going to happen, but with the attitude that I think you're referring to, you can take the most negative seeming consequence and see that as a blessing, a challenge, and a gift from the Creator to learn. Something I think Tot was referring to before this in different words, I think. Really appreciate you sharing that. Andrea, Tot, anybody have any other thoughts on that passage or on anything in this passage?
I was
Well, like
just
Morris said, if
so
it's going to rain, go ahead, Tat. No, you go ahead. No, okay, all right, I'll go first. If it's gonna rain, you're gonna get rained on. That's my lesson from that. It's everybody's gonna go through some things that are gonna be the same, and everything else you take it in a light stride. But yeah, you're not sheltered from any storm or earthquake. It's gonna happen, and gonna go back to what's happening in the world, right? You're not immune to it, but focus on yourself. Focus on working on your inner garden and cultivating that, and yeah, following the path of the light of goodness.
So, did you have something to add, Todd?
actually, I wanted to make a question to Maurice because he mentioned that he experienced that twice, and those two psychic readings were external. So, are you also agree, or do you also think that most of the psychic readings are from ourselves? I mean, you also have your experiences, and you also have your ways to channel or to communicate with others. So it was like in the whole experience that you had been here on air, you have experienced just twice a psychic reading or external? external psychic reading.
I'm sorry, was that question to me?
Yes, Maurice.
I didn't catch all of that, but these were external psychic readings. I won't give you the whole story behind that, but they were quite intense. Linda also, from that same source, had a psychic reading, which was more intense for her. I had the opportunity of being aware of psychic readings in advance, so I knew how to respond to them and therefore could shed that attempt by the entity to influence me. Linda, without having that advanced teaching, so to speak, had quite a difficult experience.
Okay.
I appreciate your asking that, Tot, because I had similar question I was going to ask at some point. Because, yeah, they say in the first passage when an entity is standing close to the light, attempting to serve in some way that is above the ordinary healing, teaching, or in some way serving others, then that closeness to the light reveals small defects of character that can make them more susceptible. So, yeah, Morris, I would think certainly in your position at L&L Research, as well as Jim and Gary and Trish and Austin, I would think could be more susceptible to that than the rest of us bozos on the bus. Those two psychic readings that you had, were they in the past, or have you had any of those more recently in the
Well, they were
last, I don't
actually
know,
in
5, 10 years?
Peru. They both happened in Peru at Machu Picchu, which
Mm.
is a high energy site. And I
Mm.
have not had one since then. But the key, as I was mentioning from the Ra passage, the more firmly you're established in your choice of service to others, the less you're affected. And that's the important message. I have had the opportunity to study this material for a long time, and I'm not as susceptible because that choice has been firmly made. So I don't suffer as someone might that hasn't had that opportunity of learning.
Nice. Yeah, and I believe Jim has been asked about it at least once or twice on Q&As, and we can't think of any psychic readings he's experienced. And hard pressed to think of anyone on the planet who's standing closer to the light than he is. So I think his response and your response as well, I think, is probably a good reminder to folks to chill out. If you're feeling like you've had a psychic reading, it's probably just some parts of yourself that you really haven't integrated yet. So look within. And as they said, either way, it really doesn't matter whether it's coming from outside or inside. They're saying send love and light to the creator and to the entire transaction, because negative entities apparently are sickened by true love. Any other
One
thoughts?
thought on that. You're right, sending the love and light from the creator, but in the last paragraph, it needs to be genuine, heartfelt love, which is applied and not just a band-aid of intellectual response. You need to feel that love for whoever it is that's giving you that opportunity, not just think about it, feel it.
Yeah. Yeah, really beautiful reminder that it has to be sincere. It has to be honest. You can't just be sending love and light just to get them, make you leave you alone. It does remind me of a meme that I created specifically for this occasion. That when you have to send genuine love and light to a negative entity sending you psychic reading, it really does have to be sincere. It really does have to come from the heart. And yeah, that's one thing that I've appreciated about the love, about the Law of One, that so much of it is not about just trying to game the system or say the things that you think are the right things to say. You really have to feel it truly on a vibrational state, and I find that reassuring. Anybody else have any thoughts, reflections on anything else from this passage or the
I'm
meme
just
that
gonna
we
say
just
you
looked at?
can fake it until you make it. You can't still like use the fake it till you make it or practice until you make it approach. So even though it's not a foolproof shield or won't give you the same reaction, you can still kind of like when people don't believe in gratitude, you know, like just so negative. But try saying one thing you're grateful for every day, and do that for a month every single day, and suddenly you suddenly feel a little bit more grateful. Next thing you know, you can do two things you're grateful for every day, and next thing you know, it's 10 things, and next thing you know, you're just grateful for every moment. So I think that the fake it till you make it or practice till you make it approach also works on this, just maybe not as, you can't just intellectualize your way, like you said. I hereby banish you, love and light, namaste, your way out of it here. But if you practice the namaste every day for a little while, you might start to believe it and feel it. So, there's two ways to go about it as well.
Really appreciate your saying that. That really is a true counter argument. I think that if you can't do it from the heart, like you said, just fake it till you make it. I can't say it any better than you just said, so thank you for adding that. Anybody else? Any thoughts, reflections on these couple passages before we look at something else? Well, let's take a look at something that is, I think, related to this, and that is shadow work. On September 15th, 2018, Quo said, "The ability to benefit from fear is an ability that is expressed or possessed by one who is, shall we say, fearless, who is able to stand face to face with that which is feared, and to see it as a portion of its own being, not as that which is separate from the being. For indeed, all are one. Whatever is feared is a shadow portion of one's own being in a specific form that may seem incongruous with one holds as the highest and best ideals with which to live. However, even the shadow side of the self has much to offer to any seeker of truth. It is the portion of the self that is most often feared, and which takes the form of that in the outer world or illusion, that then forms itself in the means by which the seeker may be able to utilize this form of fear to grow further into love and light by realizing in truth there is no thing to fear, for all is one. All is one in every aspect, both the positive and the negative. Love and light can be shared with all and benefit all without the need to fear any portion of the allness of one's being." Really beautiful passage, and I just wanted to offer an editorial note here that, yeah, my spell corrector was telling me to change no thing to fear into nothing to fear. But I was trusting that this is the way it actually came out in the transcription. And there is actually something special about saying there is no thing to fear as opposed to nothing to fear. And I like the subtle but slight difference in that separation of those two words. I did also want to note that I did take the liberty of making editorial changes to this passage and capitalizing in places that were not capitalized in the original transcripts. All or one was not originally capitalized. All is one was not originally capitalized. Allness was not originally capitalized. But as I've come to look at these passages more and more, I've come to my own conclusion that those words don't refer to just like generic things. They really are referring to things that are associated with divinity and with a one infinite creator and oneness. So I myself have chosen to capitalize those. You who are watching this on video may feel differently, and that's okay too. Having said that, Tatiana, any thoughts on the actual meat of the passages here?
I remember Andrea was mentioning in the beginning something like, okay, if the universe sends you a detour, go and take the detour, like sometimes we also said that to ourselves, trust the process. Trust the process even and it has a detour, like and don't blame others because of your process. That's part of also to the shadow work, and shadow work doesn't mean like because I was in darkness and it was a very very hard spot or challenging situation. I was doing a great work and I'm now like ready to be a spiritual being and I'm going to be love and light and the others, like I did my process, so you are nothing to me. Because you are seeing nowadays also in several communities, like they start to healing in a pendulum. They were in these very dark areas and then they go extremely to the light and they try to vibe on it and they go again to the darkness. So for me, shadow work is something that it has to, it doesn't has to, but you need to be aware and conscious why it's appearing there, and that there is part of you and it will come always. It's catalyst, it's the fuel to continue your experience, because without it then you're like kind of being in the paradise. And of course, we are here to live our paradise on earth. But paradise also comes with sometimes maybe there is not like fuel, or maybe there is like no food to eat. So I think this shadow work and healing is more about truly knowing yourself first, truly knowing yourself, and
So
noticing what is
important.
showing up with you. Like what is inside of you, trying to, and not to trying to change anyone else or fix anyone else, not to interfere in the process. And this is, with family. This is something
Yeah.
that you are like, oh, my mom is wrong, my sister is wrong, I'm good. First
Yeah.
start with your nucleus. First start with
Yeah.
yourself, and then
Yeah, I
move on with
appreciate
what.
bringing it up for sure. I think so much of what we learn from the Law of One really is about awareness and consciousness. And like you said, being aware and conscious of the processes that are happening inside you and changing them if need be. Oh, what do you think? Oh, Morris, anything to add to that?
Well, you're talking about shadow work here. And when I heard you were going to have a topic on fearlessness, this is the one I asked to participate in because I know something about that. I was exposed to this information as a young adult and did shadow work early in my life and have had virtually no issues that I've had to deal with fear for most of my adult life. It works. It works. You face these issues, you deal with them, you bless them for that opportunity to learn, you move on, and you don't have to deal with it again. It's been a wonderful blessing in my life.
Yeah, and we're all learning these lessons at our own paces at different times, and some of us learn it sooner or later than others. So, yeah, I appreciate your sharing that. What do you think, Andrea? Anything to add?
Well, to start, I think the copyright team from LLL Research and Quo are going to come get you for the capitalizations. So I'm just here for the show.
There you go.
But no, I mean, realistically, I think, it's we are going to all be the villain in somebody's story at one point or another, and it's okay to make peace with that. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are evil. It doesn't necessarily mean you are the villain. It just so happens you need to be that mirror for somebody else. Other times, if you don't deal with your own shadows, or you don't deal with your own internal work, eventually your higher self says, okay, you're not really listening, you're not really doing the thing I told you to. You remember we had a plan before we came here. So it's going to start like bringing people and opportunities and experiences and catalysts in your face, very much in your face, that reflect the shadow parts of yourself that you need to work on over and over and over again until you learn the darn lesson. There's no escaping it. So you either do it in the comfort of your own home, meditating, or however you work through it, or journaling, or you're gonna go outside and be faced with it over and over again. But there is really no escaping it. I think that's really cool, because your higher self is guiding you to say, hey, remember we went here. I know you forgot, but like we came here for a reason, and we were supposed to work on these things. So no skipping on the homework. Do your homework, and sometimes you need to be that mirror for other people. You need to
Yeah.
hold that space, whatever that is, and other people will reflect on it and go, "Oh, right. I guess I need to do my own shadow work." And you're like, "Yeah, yeah, go do that. I got to go do mine. Everybody, go do your own homework." But I love what Morris and Tad said. What do you think, Jonathan?
Yeah, and I appreciate your reminders that, the message that I'm getting from this passage is not to be afraid of what you perceive as your shadow self. And as you said, the shadow work lessons are going to come at you until you figure them out. And I think I'm reminded on a daily level that shadow work works both on the individual level and the collective level. I think we all, at some point, have seen aspects of our shadow self, parts of ourself that seem to be darker and like the antithesis of the service to others path. And that our challenge is to integrate those rather than sweeping them aside or stuffing them in the closet, shall we say, but to embrace them and integrate them and make them part of our whole. And I think the same applies on the collective level. I mean, Quo has said many times that Earth is already vibrating fully in fourth density. It's just humanity that seems to be lagging behind. And clinging to third density thought and behavior patterns. And what you said, I think, reminded me that, yeah, there are many entities that we may see outside of ourselves in, the larger world who seem to be representing our shadow selves, who seem to be like the polar opposite of what we perceive as service to others. And the challenge that I'm seeing here is to not chase them away, not to silence them, not to push them away, but rather to integrate them and embrace them and accept them with love and invite them to be part of ourselves and part of this fourth density world that is emerging. And that's a challenge. That's not something that I find easy to do, but just as it's a challenge for service to others, entities to maybe like stop supporting Nazis, for example, it's like just as much of a challenge for me to embrace those who seem to be enthusiastically supporting Nazis and say, you are not my enemy, you are my friend, and to embrace them and forgive them and love them. That's the challenge that I'm working on every day, for sure. Morris, do you have any other? Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andrea.
I was just going to jump in and say, we're given this opportunity right now with all of these catalysts to say if anybody was napping and sleeping at the wheel and not really making a choice one way or another, the whole world, somebody's shaking the tree. The whole world is being shaken. The tree is shaken. So you're going to fall out of the tree. You got to pick which side you want to fall on. You don't have to pick a side if you don't want to. There's going to be other trees to go up, but put it this way, you're not really left in this middle ground anymore. You're kind of forced to at least face the inner shadows because they are there. They're front and center everywhere. You hear about them, you see the impacts. You're kind of like really forcing you to make a change or choice rather. Regardless, and it's not a good choice or a bad choice. It's whichever way you go, but there's definitely a lot more push and energy and waves to say, hey, those that were napping at the wheel, those who were sleeping and just kind of cruising along and I'm not going to make any decision, you got to make one. So it's definitely speeding up in that sense.
Yeah, and I'm reminded of a passage from Quo where they said, we really need to bring this planet up to the very brink of destruction to allow for those who made choices in the past that resulted in the destruction of their planets to make different and better choices this time. And I think, as I think you're suggesting, I think as the time proceeds, we're just going to see increasingly polarizing catalysts that are really going to be compelling people like with a board to the head to choose between what you see as service to others or service to self or consistent with those paths. And yes, I may see it very differently from others, and it's not my place to tell people what service to others and what service to self. I think each of us is being challenged to make those choices and discernments for ourselves. Morris, Tat, did you have anything else to add on that thought or this passage? No.
I have something to add based on addressing Andrea talking about people being asleep at the wheel or in the sinkhole of indifference. The intensity of the catalyst will be strong until the choice is made. Once the choice is made, you're relieving yourself from that intensity. While the catalyst may still be around, you're either thanking it for the learning opportunity, so it's not making you afraid or really upsetting you. If you've made the choice for service to self, you're looking at that as opportunities then. So the intensity of the catalyst is experienced to the degree that you are so far away from making that choice. The closer you get to making that pure choice, the easier life gets.
Yeah. And I think I would only add to that in saying that there's probably many people who have made the choice already of service to others, but now it becomes a matter of making choices that are consistent with that path. I believe Ross said, and Quo has said a number of times, that, what happened on Mars and what happened on Maldek, where those plants were destroyed, was because a significant portion of the population thought they were service to others, but their behavior patterns really didn't seem consistent with that path. And from my narrow-minded perspective, I would see that as people who believe they have chosen the service to others path, but for whatever reason, still seem to be supporting people who are really doing heinously service to self things. And again, that's just my perspective on it, and I certainly could be wrong on it, but that's what I see happening with a lot of folks. And again, it's not my place to judge people negatively, because that would be depolarizing, and the law of responsibility, I think, doesn't need me to enforce it, but I would encourage all of us, if you have chosen the service to others path, to look at the choices you're making and see if they really are consistent or not with that. What do you think, Todd? Anything to add, or anybody have anything else to add on this before we look at another passage, another subject? Cool. Well, we're going to take a significant turn here and take a look at a couple passages on angels. On November 23rd, 2001, Quo said, "There is help for those who wish to rise. There is an enormous company, as this instrument has often said, of angels, beings that wish only to help entities to evolve and to cherish them while they do, to keep them in a metaphysical sense safe and comfortable. There are angels around each of you. They truly desire to be of service. When you sit in the silence, lean into that help and ask that invisible company to give you signs, give you ideas, help with the guidance, help with the clues, so that you can choose what feels the most resonant as your own path of service." And on December 29th, 2007, Quo said, "Help is all around you. We cannot emphasize that enough. There are angelic presences all around you that have been attracted by your purity of desire and intentions. They wish nothing more than to help you achieve the goals that you have set for yourself this day. And do not forget to ask nature to help you, for that too is a kingdom of the Father. The very ground loves you beyond all telling. The air, the trees, all that there is in the kingdom of the Father is dancing with you and inviting you to join that wonderful, harmonious rhythm of the dance of the One." I wanted to look at a couple passages on angels because as I was reflecting on the topic of fearlessness and fear, to me, what gives me the greatest comfort is knowing that there's protection from angels. We're constantly surrounded by angels who want nothing more than to help us do what we came to this incarnation to do. And you just have to ask for the help, since they won't violate free will. But I just find that a beautiful, reassuring thing whenever I'm feeling afraid or fear. What do you think? Morris, any thoughts on either of these passages?
You said the key word, ask. They are there. They want to serve. They can't violate free will. You don't get their help unless you ask.
Yeah, so important. Andrea, any thoughts? Anything to add?
Yeah, first thing that comes to mind is careful what you ask for. Wait, if you're not super clear and super attentive, you might just accidentally, bring yourself into creation, stumbling down the stairs and getting a bruise because you asked for to help them over an obstacle or something weird. So, beside the fact that I think they have no personal space idea, and they're probably just all over, kind of in our space, we can't see them. I think that's really beautiful. I think it's really beautiful to see that to get the message that there are other beings that have literally nothing better to do with their time than just hang out and wait for you to be like, can I help you? Is there anything I can do for you? That's pretty cool. It's like having your own little butlers that are just there to make you happy and to help you out and whatever you need. They literally can do anything in the whole universe of metaphysics and whatnot. And then they're just like, I'm going to hang out in 3D and just wait in case she asks or maybe thinks that she wants to ask for something. And yeah, talk about a service to others. Talk about the love that we're getting from that, just to, be chosen and given that opportunity that somebody could help us or something could help us, and how lucky we are. And at the same time, how lucky, we are because we also can help somebody. Another person passes us on the street and, you can point out that they're about to trip on their shoelaces, or somebody asks for change for a bus and you're like, oh my God, I get to help you. This is so cool. Out of everywhere I could be in the universe and all the things I could do, I just happen to have enough change in my pocket to give you for the bus. Yes, this is amazing. So I feel like that's kind of a trickle down or trickle up effect where, we help other selves, and other selves that are higher beings, angels, whatever we want to call them, help us. And in return, we're kind of all helping each other. Sometimes we're helping 2 steps back, sometimes it's 2 steps forward, but ultimately it works out in the same way. It's just that little dance. And not just the angels, right? It's the weather, the earth, the flowers, the bees, and everything that goes in. Because we don't ask the bees to pollinate the flowers; they just do. We don't ask the birds to go around and fly and eat all the insects; they just do. They just are, and we thank them for that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I had obviously heard of angels long before discovering the Law of One, like 5 or 6 years ago. But there's a term that they use also, which I never saw before, which is guidance system, which refers to both the guardian angels, which apparently are assigned to us at birth to help us through this incarnation, as well as all the other spirit guides and guardian angels and nature devas who might join to work with us to help us do what we came to this incarnation to do. It's a really beautiful, reassuring thing to know that, oh, I'm not alone, and I actually do have help there as long as I ask for it. I'm fascinated by the part where they refer to the angelic presences all around you that have been attracted by your purity of desire and intentions, meaning that if you really don't particularly have that much purity towards service to others or intentions, that they're not necessarily going to be that attracted to you. But people who really do care, honestly, in their heart, not just faking it or giving lip service to it, but really truly do want to be of service to others and really truly do want to help Mother Earth, that there are hosts of angelic beings of light that are attracted who really want to help you do that. I just find that a beautiful, inspiring thing. What do you think? Tot, anything to add to that?
Well, yeah, Morris said, Andrea said, it's written here, ask, but also to remember where to focus our attention, if I'm focus my attention in something that is helping me, or I'm focus my attention in something that is actually not bringing me further. And after that, I read the other day a book that is called Angels on My Fingertips, from a woman who said that angels are everywhere. I believe angels are not just spiritual beings. I believe angels are animals, angels are people, angels are even songs, like messages. You receive messages in multiple ways. And there is, like, of course, Andrea said, be aware what you're asking for, but also acknowledge and ask for forgiveness, because we tend to forget that part, like to oh, please forgive me because what I did was not correct. And if the person is not close by, do it though, because the words has a power. So we are in this material word to say so everything comes to our mind, it goes to our spirit, and then to our body, and then you can materialize things. So also talk to others, and that's also a way to help yourself and to help, if maybe your words help the other. Maybe he was not asking for it, but maybe you were just doing reference into something, and then it's like, oh, actually that what you said is so true, and why this woman was telling me this, or why this guy was suddenly singing that song. So there is multiple ways to find help and to find also resonance what you are doing. So yeah.
Indeed. Yeah, much appreciate the thoughts on that. And it does remind me that Quo said in some other passages that I didn't read, that not only is it important to ask for help and ask for forgiveness when you fall short of what you were hoping to do, but thanking them. I guess angels are not that different from human entities, where they like to be acknowledged and they like to appreciate it. Not to suck up them, but to just let them know that you really do appreciate what they're doing to help. I think that's part of this path as well. I really appreciate the thoughts. And anybody have any other thoughts, reflections on this passage? I did really appreciate the part at the end where they talk about asking nature to help you, and that everything in nature, the air, the trees, the plants, the nature spirits, are inviting you to join the dance, that wonderful harmonious rhythm of the dance of the one. Dance metaphors appear quite a bit in Law of One channeling sessions, the way they refer to dancing with the rhythms of the earth in this incarnation, so much so that we had a podcast episode on it. So if you're interested, check out that one. It's a beautiful episode with lots of beautiful, inspiring passages like this one. Otherwise, let's take a look at another one. This is from November 3rd, 1979, and this is from our friend Latui, who is 1/3 of the entity known as Quo. They said, and this has been edited for brevity, it depends upon your state of belief as to whether angels can physically aid you. If you believe in their reality, they can do almost anything, for grace is given unto those who believe. And the angels are the ministers of that grace. They are people such as you who had learned through many lifetimes to glorify and praise the Creator. Thus, having learned, the angel can pass on the power and the invocation of light. There is nothing more powerful than the light of the Spirit. It is, however, incumbent upon the angel to know the limits of the laws of creation and the will of the Father. Thus, the angel's laws are not those of your illusion, but those of reality. And so it may seem at times that your requests are not being met. And if this is so, it is because it is not the will of your higher self which shares the perfection of the Creator. For remember that you yourself are the co-creator with the Creator, and thus a perfect being, who in some part of yourself knows what you must learn and how you must learn it in this particular experience. Those who make complete use of their meditation, their prayer, and their faith lead the life of harmony that you would expect of one who lives with the knowledge of the love and the plan of the Creator. The angels are simply messengers of His love, as are we. I discovered this passage fairly recently. I think it was actually in the process of writing this episode that I discovered this passage. And I love it because I think it speaks to the concerns of many who at some times have felt that all those things that they're praying for and asking for really don't seem to be happening and may perhaps lose faith. And I love what they're saying here that, well, they do obey the laws of free will, and they do are aware of what you planned for this incarnation. So sometimes it seems that maybe your requests are not being met, but they can pass on the power and the invocation of light. There is nothing more powerful than the light of the Spirit. I find that super inspiring, especially in times of, say, darkness. What do you think, Andrew? Any thoughts on this passage?
Yeah, cop out. Oh, don't blame the messengers. Don't blame the angels. It's your higher self that you have it. I'm like, well, that's not cool. Higher self.
Really not that different from people, are they? Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, okay, higher self. We need to have a serious chat now. It's no. I think it's a beautiful message, and I think it's interesting because the implication, at least from Christianity, is that is around like angels and demons. So if there are angels, you believe, then you must therefore also believe in these evil creature entities that sit on your shoulder and do all these things, and they attach themselves to you. And it's like, okay, that's not doesn't necessarily mean the truth. That's not quite the right thing. Yes, you can have psychic attacks, just like we spoke earlier. Yes, you can have mostly basically parts of yourself that are revealed and that speak to yourself, whether uncertainties or doubts. But at the same time, it doesn't mean you must also believe that something with horns is following you around and just waiting behind the corner underneath the couch to jump out and be like, aha, I now take you. So yeah, I think it's a very positive message. Still believe a little bit on the cop out, but that's just because I'm a very pouty 3D child, and me and my higher self need to have a very long discussion after this and regroup and be like, seriously, I asked for this 5 times and you couldn't even send me that.
I think we have all wanted to have a long talk with our higher selves at some point. Sure. What do you think, Todd? Anything to add?
Well, I just think that we are everything, like, and I don't believe nowadays that there is something bigger than me, in a way that the other one is the one who is going to help me because the other one is the one who has the power. So I believe that that's simply an extension of our beings, or my being. And like all of the others are part of myself, and I'm part of the others. So I don't see that separation. I don't see it like my higher self is telling me what I have to do because this one is not capable of. So I'm just like, okay, maybe in this level I need another state of consciousness to reach or to achieve something. So yeah, we are at the end one. So I try not to see separation between angels, God, or other entities, because also this is this is me. This is part of this creation. This is part of our creation, and I decided, as we also mentioned at the beginning, to get the ticket and experience the being and inhabiting today. And if you believe in yourself, then multiple things can happen. And if you believe that what you are creating is happening, why that has to be exterior? What has to be somewhere else? So
Well
yeah,
said.
we are one.
Yeah, I had not really thought of it that way as applied to angels in particular, but no, everything you said makes perfect sense. And I think that is the perspective that we all are encouraged to strive for, to see all as one and to not see any separation between us and anyone or anything else that we perceive to be something other than ourselves. So yeah, appreciate your sharing that.
just
What?
just
Yeah.
one little thing. I think that also very important here is to, maybe it's not part of this experience, but to have compassion, like, and when you have compassion, you can integrate more, or you can really start to sense that the guy over there, maybe the bagger, okay, well, he wants to have the life, and he deserves also to be respected. So I think compassion is also a very, very wonderful tool in order to ask for more and to accept more.
Well said. A worthy addendum for sure. Oh, what do you think, Morris? Anything to add?
Nothing to add to that. Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah, I really am enjoying this conversation. As I mentioned before, you guys are like picking up on things I hadn't picked up on, and I'm learning a lot from you. So thank you all for being here. How about, did anybody else have any other thoughts on this passage before we change topics and look at something else?
I just love Tat's explanation or viewpoint around, yeah, it's instead of externalizing the, I'd say, reward of asking, it's internalize it to say we are one. So it's coming from me, my higher self, my future higher self, to past higher self, to support or bring that help or guidance or whatever that is. I like that because it takes away that agency of otherness. It kind of brings us back to the one. So yeah, I love that.
Well said. Yeah, always many different ways to look at anything. And as Ra and Kuo have said many times, every soul is unique. Every spiritual journey is unique. And what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for anyone or everyone else. And what works for anyone or everyone else doesn't necessarily work for you. So that is part of the challenge we've all been given, to learn and figure that stuff out for ourselves, including you who are watching this on video. Let's go ahead and take a look at, this is the last topic, last couple of passages on laughter and the law of one. I did want to point out that we're making references to co-creators and creators, and that pops up often in many, many different channeling sessions. So many times we did a podcast episode on it, looking at passages to help remind us that we are indeed creators and co-creators of our life experience and our reality. Check it out if you're interested. Otherwise, let's take a look at a couple passages on laughter and the law of one. On October 2nd, 2010, Kuo said, "It is with great amusement that we fully express within this instrument's head, why so serious? We would highly encourage you, as an exercise in learning about the self, to see the humor of life's situations, to realize that your incarnations here are a beautiful, fun, entertaining game. They are music. Each action is a note in the sonata. They are art. They are dance. There is a great lightness of freedom in each of your actions that once you become coiled down into your conscious experience of third density, they are often hard to see. We would convey the image of viewing your life like a reality TV show, a funny TV show, in which you can observe yourself and instead of looking back with regret at your actions, see the humor and the entertainment it causes for the creator, the joy that each of your actions conveys. To be able to look back and laugh at the lessons learned, at how things that seem such silliness, that seem so inconsequential, form together into the most breathtaking symmetry. I do enjoy the pop culture reference here. I believe this came out around the time that the Dark Knight Batman movie came out with Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker. I believe that's where the Why So Serious reference is coming from, and I much appreciate that. As well as looking at life as a reality TV show, because this has got to be either the best or the worst reality TV show I've ever seen in my fucking life. But I'm trying to learn how to see it as the best and enjoy the humor in it. What do you think, Tatiana? Any thoughts on anything here?
Just like, yeah, for me, this is a TV show. That's the reason also because I love to see movies. I really enjoy seeing movies, but because it's like another perception. And each time I'm getting tangled into a situation that I'm like, oh, this is getting difficult. I'm like, okay, put you apart, just see the whole theater there, and then try to figure out how you can go with it. It takes a lot of patience, and this is also one of another of the tools. Compassion, patience is something that most of us, and we were talking about that before in the passages, we are missing sometimes. So we always put a little patience on the side. So I think that's also something that helps us to take like a little bit less hard. And also we were laughing today talking about like being egocentric and giving us like a little bit of punishment, like I'm a bad person. No, this is not worthy. So, and then laugh about that, how ridiculous it is that you sabotage yourself daily. This is really, you don't do it with the ones you love, but you do it with yourself. So,
Which is kind of funny, isn't it?
yes, it's funny because it's insane. And you do it like so easily. And then it's like, I say to myself, like, oh, this is really funny, Tati. Where are you right now? What is going on here? So play the movie once again, and if it's not happening, then I watch one that somehow make a reference to you. I love to see movie references to understand a little bit more what is happening right now in my life.
For sure. Yeah, the blur between reality TV show and reality is not helped by the fact that the President of the United States is literally a former reality TV show host. That's pretty fucking funny. You really could not write that stuff. We seem to be living in a hybrid mashup of the Matrix and Idiocracy in the United States. It really does seem to be that is our new reality, so to speak. What do you think, Morris? Any thoughts on anything here?
Well, the key point is not to take ourselves so seriously. We wrote the script. We're living on the script that we wrote. We stumble, we fall, we get up, we dust ourselves off, take a step back. What's going on here? Learn the lesson and move on. Don't get so bent when things don't go our way.
Yeah. Yeah, easy to say, hard to remember. I know you are somebody who seems to have mastered that pretty much on a daily level, and that's something I'm getting better and better at, but yeah, I'm still working on for sure. What do you think, Andrea? Anything to add?
Yeah, I think if there's any psychologists or therapists that are watching this, they're gonna be like, "Y'all a bunch of dissociative, people. You need therapy, big time. Life is not this. You're supposed to be in the moment, live it." But no, in reality, I think it is a really good way to take that higher level perspective, and you often hear that to say like, "Oh, think long term. Look the high, 1,000 feet view. Look at the big perspective. Change your perspective." And it really reminds me of improv. So like in improv, one of the foundational rules is it's the yes and. So you say yes to whatever the partner says, whatever that other self says. You have to say yes. You have to accept that that is the new reality. Like, hey, there's a dragon here, and you're like, yes, okay. And that's now your turn. You now have to build upon that, whatever it is. But the dragon's dead, or the dragon is cooking cookies, baking cookies in the kitchen, or whatever that is. You kind of just go with it, and then whatever you say, they have to say yes and I feel like that's pretty much our 3D reality. Is a whole bunch of us are saying like, oh, the sky is blue, and we're like, yes, and there's birds, and somebody's like, yes, and the bird looks like a macaw, and you're like, yes, and it's blue and yellow and purple. And you're like, that's a weird. Okay, yes, and it also speaks.
Yeah.
Okay, now we're getting crazy, but yes, and so like kind of that continuation of whatever that is, and it's really just that improv of where we're the actors. We have a general script of what we're supposed to be talking about or doing, and then we kind of just bumble about like fools in the dark with a big stick and hit each other over the head accidentally or on purpose to figure out where the yes and comes in, and where we're like, I'm gonna tap out. This is a bit too much, too real for me.
Yeah, I appreciate your bringing that up. Big fan of improv comedy, so your reference is not lost on me. And yeah, that is another great way of looking at reality and saying, yes, the world is literally coming to an end. And there's a new one coming after that that's even better. So it's like, yeah, that's a really great metaphor for, I think, what we're experiencing right now in the transition from third to fourth density. I think I had one other passage to look at on this subject. Anybody else have anything to add on this one before we look at that? Sounds good. Let's see. This is from June 24th, 1990. And Quo said, the laughter quotient, shall we say, of your days should be gradually moving upward. More things should be transparent to you who have been upon the trail for a while, and therefore deeply humorous in that humor that goes beyond the smile and warms the heart. For this life that you experience is the joke without the punchline. You play the second banana to yourself. As you gain perspective and you see yourself as a soap opera characters, cartoon characters, creatures that may be ridiculous and still be safe, secure, and undaunted, so will you lose the many, many layers of fear which cause you to armor against the delightfulness of life. Again, I'm reminded in reading this passage that the person who was saying this was in a deep, deep meditative state and really didn't know where these words were going from sentence to sentence. But yeah, the phrasing here, the life that you experience is the joke without the punchline. You play the second banana to yourself. It's like, who do you know who would have thought of that phrasing, that turn of phrase to teach something here? I just think that, again, is such a beautiful thing. And I just love how this teaching came about. What do you think, Morris? Any thoughts on anything here?
No, it was well stated. I like it.
So beautiful, isn't it? It's like, how do you improve on that? What do you think, Andrea? You want to take a shot at it? Any thoughts, reflections on anything?
Definitely, and I think laughter is very unused in our world. It's mostly used to be targeted at people rather than just general humor. So it's more targeting groups and kind of maybe used for leverage. But I find that as we do gratitude practice, or we encourage people to meditate, or we encourage people to have all these healthy habits like exercise, I have yet to hear somebody say, hey, make sure that at least once a day you have a good belly laugh, or like have a good laugh. Find something that's completely silly and just laugh. And I think that that's just as important as gratitude. It's just as important as sending love and light, because that raises your vibration. Like you can't be angry or upset when you're having a good laugh, regardless of what it's at. Ideally not towards people, but it's always good to point it at yourself. and yeah, just do something silly. I think that's the a really good way of loosening up some of that tension for the days, loosening up some of those thoughts. Yeah, you can't be thinking about things that bring you down or make you sad if you're laughing. So it's another pathway, another avenue of reaching a higher state without maybe, having to shave your head and become a monk for the next 20, 30 years of meditation. Just, yeah, laugh your butt off.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it would be fair to say that the established major religions of the world might mention humor once in a while, but none of the Christianity, Islam, well, maybe Judaism, not particularly known for their sense of humor in particular, but that is one of so many things that I appreciate about the Law of One. They talk about humor a lot, and they talk about it as a really important part of our spiritual growth and learning, and so much so that we had a podcast episode on laughter and the Law of One. So check it out if you want to see some great passages on laughter and the importance of humor. What do you think?
Jonathan, you
Yeah.
do a really great job with your memes that you put on the Facebook page to bring laughter to everybody that reads them. You spend time
Seconded.
on it, and it has a ripple effect, my friend.
My wife might say too much time looking for memes for sure. Yeah, I really appreciate it, and I'm glad that you appreciate it too. So, we do have a Facebook group for viewers who didn't quite pick up on that. We do have a Seattle Law of One Facebook group. So, those of you who are on Facebook, if you have not joined yet, yes, we do post a lot of spiritual memes in addition to a lot of inspiring passages from Ra and Quo. So, thank you for the shout out on that, Morris. Todd, do you
You
have
forgot to
anything?
say you forgot to mention there's a mandatory requirement when you join the group. You have to post a meme. So that's yeah. If you want to join the Law of One, you have to find a meme that you find is funny. Even if the rest of us don't, that's fine. You just bring it, and we'll accept you in the group.
And fake it until you make it. Yeah, if you need to.
Exactly.
Todd, anything to add? Any thoughts on this or anything else?
No, I think it's yeah, I think it's more than enough. Just one tiny thing. I remember someone I very close said to me, I always wish that my child can laugh at least one per day. And I was like, why? Yeah, like that will bring her state into calmness. And I was like, oh, that's very clever. Never thought about that. And I try to laugh more day by day. Like sometimes we get so kind of focus into our daily lives that we put our emotions away sometimes. And we are not robots. We are for sure not robots. And like we have emotions, so emotions are there to help us and to show us what and how you can work with yourself.
Indeed. Yeah, much appreciated that. And I think, as Andrea said, I think there is something special about laughter where if you're really laughing genuinely from the heart, it's almost impossible to be afraid. It seems that laughter really dispels fear by nature. So I encourage folks to use that as part of their spiritual journey. I think that is the last passage I was going to look at. Does anybody else have anything to add before we start wrapping things up?
I'll throw in something else as well. There is no one path or one way to reach enlightenment or higher self or whatever you want to call it. So if laughter is your avenue, amazing. If it's gratitude and shaving your head and being a monk, nothing wrong with that. If it's never meditating, never laughing, but just being a good person, go for it. If you're choosing the other path and that's your way of reaching the higher self, knock yourself out. But just to say, this isn't the one end all be all. It's not the smoking gun. Just like meditation is really helpful as a tool, not the only way. So yeah, there's no wrong way of doing it. Keep trying until something resonates with you and something fits, and you'll know it fits because it just fits like a t-shirt, like a good t-shirt or a good hoodie. You just put it on, you're like, ooh, this is the one. And after a while, you might not be the right hoodie anymore. So you take it off and you find another hoodie, and you're like, ooh, this is the one. That's okay too. That's what seeking is all about. It's not meant to be just pick one and that's it. So yeah, keep exploring, keep trying new things. Follow,
As
not want.
always, beautifully said, and much appreciate that addition. Because, yes, that is another thing that I've appreciated so much about the Law of One, that they have emphasized so many times that each soul is unique, each spiritual journey is unique, and so, as you said, it's up to each person to find out. Take what resonates with them and drop what doesn't, and appreciate that. Anybody else have anything to add before we wrap things up? Sounds nice. Where do we go from here? What are some takeaway lessons that we might have from our roughly 2 hour discussion today? I've got quite a few on this one, so viewers hang in there and take what resonates with you and discard the rest. But I've got 6 of them. For starters, if you can remember that a big part of our incarnation is making that leap of faith to believe that all is well and all will be well, in spite of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. That does seem to be a key to our third density incarnations. If you can remember that there is indeed magic in choosing love over fear, that would be great. If you can remember that there is indeed magic in choosing communication or love over aggression, that'd be a pretty big deal, I would say. And if you can remember to do the shadow work, to see whatever you fear as part of yourself and part of the creator as opposed to something else, and to love it, integrate it, rather than trying to fight it or push it away, that'd be pretty good too. If you can remember that you are at all times protected by angels, I'd say that's pretty good. And lastly, if you can remember that laughter dispels fear, that can be a really powerful learning too. What do you think, Andrea? Any takeaway lessons of your own you'd like to add, or final thoughts?
No, this summarized it so well. And thank you for everybody who's been listening. And thank you for the co-hosts and yourself, Jonathan, for putting it together and giving us all the opportunity to provide our insight and our path and our journey and how we see things as improv partners.
Yes, and I do want to note that, yes, I have, as always, learned a lot from all of you. So thank you for being here. Todd, anything you'd like to add?
We have talked too much today, so this is over talking if we are going to add more. Thank you so much for all of you, and also for the ones who are watching or hearing.
Thank you. I don't think anybody talked too much on this episode. I loved every word of it. Thank you. Morris, anything to add?
Just to thank you for the energy and time you put into creating this platform for Teach Learning, that we each learn from each other and others perhaps from us.
And you watching this on video are included in this as well. Thank you for all you've done to teach and learn and share with others, whatever you do. That does indeed bring us to our closing. I did want to let viewers know that if you enjoyed this particular episode, you might want to check out our podcast episodes on love over fear, all is well, shadow work, angels and archangels, creators and co-creators, laughter on the loved one. Those are all episodes where we dig a little bit deeper into things that we just kind of touched on here. So encourage you to check them out. Seattle Law of One podcast is your Law of One database. You name the topic, we've probably done a podcast episode on it at some point, or if not, we're going to fairly soon. That brings us, of course, to our pop quiz. Pop quiz is something we like to do at the end of our podcast time together, just to end our otherwise serious conversations on a lighter note and maybe look for Law of One connections in pop culture. Since today's episode was about being fearless, it seems only fitting that we should have a pop quiz on scary movies. There are so many to pick from, and I handpicked each and every graphic that went into this slide, picking ones that I thought would be nice to highlight. Morris, are you a fan of scary movies? Have you seen any or all of these on your screen?
Definitely not a fan of scary movies, not things I want to have in my consciousness, but go for it, you that are entertained by that.
As we said before we started recording, yeah, I'm not a fan of the genre either. My whole fucking life is a horror movie. I don't really know why I would need to pay money to watch 2 hours of it. How about you, Andrea? Fan of any of these movies? Have you seen any of these movies in particular?
I've actually seen most of these movies, and I am a fan. And kind of what Tad was mentioning before with the start of the podcast, and I'm sure she will again. It's they're actually kind of funny. It's more of a funny piece. As like watching as somebody that watches like true crime documentaries. Somebody died, and they love it. They live for that stuff, and you're like, I mean, that's more horror than the Parasite or the Exorcist. Like that
Nice.
doesn't happen too often compared to like true crime. So I'm like, if you want horror, watch true crime. If you want this is like junk food. This is like McDonald's. Just enjoy
So
of the
funny.
ridiculousness of it. Yeah.
Someday I hope to achieve that state of being in consciousness. How about you, Tot? Are you a fan of the genre? Have you seen any or many of these movies on screen?
I have seen 10 of them, but mainly because my daddy was the one who was renting the blockbusters, and we have to watch movies because while he was painting or drawing, we were watching movies. So, yeah, like 10 of them.
Nice. Well, this should be fun. And viewer, whether or not you are a fan of the genre, whether or not you have seen any or many of these, I hope you enjoy these. I tried to pick out 3 movies that I thought had some meaningful Law of One connections to them. So, panelists, going to ask you 3 questions about 3 of these movies. See how many you can answer correctly. As always, the points don't matter. If you had fun, you won. Panelists, say your answers out loud so we can hear you in space time. And viewer who are watching this sometime later, say your answers out loud so we can hear you through time space. Are you ready for your first question?
Let's do it.
Your first question is about the movie Get Out. True or false, Jordan Peele was the first black filmmaker to win an Oscar for the best original screenplay for Get Out. What do you think, panelists? True or false?
I think it's true.
True.
Nice.
I don't
Todd?
know.
It is true. It is true. And this is one of the few movies that I had on screen that I have actually watched. Have you guys watched this, Ariana? Andrea? Morris, have you seen
Yeah.
this one? Todd? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
It's a really great movie, and it is a scary movie, both as a horror film as what I believe to be a metaphor for the black experience in the United States, or what it's like to be black more or less anywhere in the world, as far as I can tell. For viewers who haven't seen, Daniel Kaluuya plays a young guy who's dating a white woman who takes her back to meet her family, and turns out that the horror part of that is that they are in this picture basically auctioning him off, much like slaves were auctioned off in the time of slavery, so that white people can actually transplant their brains into his body and basically take over his body, and he's left to be in what they call the sunken place. It's a trippy, scary movie. Do you remember much from that one, Andrea?
I do, and I remember how you said is a very interesting parallel to what I would assume is I say assume because I am not black, so I can't talk about it. But it would seem a very kind of racially charged movie, but also the parody behind it, right? Of that like need to have that experience is like I want to become a black person. I want to be in your body and take over. It's so yeah, there's so many sub layers to it. It's again more of a funny movie than an actual horror movie. There's not as many scare jumps to it, but yeah, it's a very, very deep context driven movie. Highly recommended.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. If I was going to choose to be in a body, I don't think I would choose to be a black male in America at this time. I think I'd probably go more for a white male. That seems like a easier, better time. But yeah, Jordan Peele was actually part of the Key and Peele comedy team, and that was his first feature film, interestingly enough. And he did go on to make several other movies, which also, again, really interesting twist on the horror movie genre for sure. I have not seen Us or Nope, but I did read the Wikipedia plot summaries, and they are great movies, well worth seeing, viewer. Let's try another one. How about this one? True or false, filming of The Substance had to stop at one point because of Demi Moore's response to the makeup used for de-aging her. What do you think, panelists? True or false?
True.
True.
False.
It is true. And am I inferring correctly, panelists, that none of you have seen this movie?
I've seen it.
You did see it.
It
Oh,
is
interesting.
really, really good. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a recent one. This only came out in 2024. For our viewers who haven't seen, can you sum up the story, Andrea? Can you tell viewers what this is
Sure.
about? Because it's a freaky movie for sure.
It is, and spoiler alert, I don't exactly know which part of this is a spoiler because this is on Wikipedia as well. But yeah, this lady wants to be younger, so she gets a substance, a trial substance, of course, not approved by the FDA, and she basically lays down, and another version, a younger version of herself, pops out of her back, gets to live for 24 hours with her consciousness, and then kind of merges back into her. And then she wakes up and go, oh, what happened in the last 24 hours? This is what I've done. And it kind of just goes further and further towards the addiction of the substance, of living as a young person. And then the impact of the old person versus the young person. Yeah, it's a really good movie. Kind of talks about the lost youth and how that chasing of the fountain of youth that you often see either talked about or you see in the media around how to stay younger, how to be younger. And hey, now that you have all this experience and money later in life, how you can take advantage of that and get that youth again. But really, you're missing out on the rest of your life and the impacts it could have. So, again,
Well
really cool
said.
subtext to it.
Yeah, well said. Appreciate it. I have not seen it, but I read the Wikipedia plot summary, and much as Get Out was not just a great horror movie, but kind of a good metaphor for the black experience. I think this movie is definitely a freaky horror movie with all sorts of weird, horrifying twists and turns, but also a great metaphor for what it means to be female and how Hollywood basically what happens when a person who's young and famous and rich for being young and beautiful becomes old and not so beautiful by Hollywood standards, and the struggle to remain in her mind of value. And yeah, I believe there's one scene where she's like able to go out on a date with somebody, and this is after the younger version of herself has literally crawled out of a slit in her back to achieve youth. She's just like going through this session of putting on makeup and taking it off and putting it on and taking it off again, and it's all about her self-hatred as she looks at herself in the mirror and hates the older, less beautiful person that she's seeing in the mirror. And yeah, apparently according to Demi Moore, I mean, they had to do it like 40, 50 times for each take, and it was really difficult for her, who, as you may or may not know, I mean, she became very rich and famous for being young and beautiful, and had to challenge herself to do these scenes as she is obviously not as young and beautiful as she used to be. And at some point, I think they really just had to stop filming because, one, I think the makeup was just like rubbing her face raw from having to do it, but emotionally, I think it just left her raw from having to keep looking at the parts of herself that she felt the most insecure about. Really great actress. I saw her in Ghost, beautiful in there. Saw her in what was it? I think I saw St. Elmo's Fire. I saw A Few Good Men. She was great in that. She's a really fascinating person who, I don't know if you've seen any of other movies, but I read the Wikipedia plot summaries, and every movie that she's been in, really complex characters and really complex situations that are way more complicated than they seem to be, and really encourage folks to see it. Has anybody seen any of these other movies she's been in? Some have. Morris, do you remember? Were there any in particular that you remember stand out for you?
I liked A Few Good Men. I thought that was well done.
Yeah. Great movie. That is definitely one of my top 5 favorite movies of all time, and she was great in there for sure. Let's take a look at one more. How about this? For folks who have seen Arrival or have not, what is the meaning of the symbol shown below as used in the movie Arrival? Does it mean A, human, B, weapon, C, tool, or D, time? What do you think, panelists?
Time.
I think it was time.
I cannot remember.
They thought it was weapon, and then it was like a tool, and then
Tool, I
it turned
think
into
it's
something
tool.
else.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, the correct answer is B or C. It's not really all that clear, but yeah, for folks who haven't seen this movie, we've mentioned it a few times on the podcast before, and it is an extraterrestrial movie and it is a time travel movie, but kind of really different in both respects. These do seem to be extraterrestrial beings who just appeared all of a sudden in these ships like you see on the screen with no particular understanding of why they came here. So it is up to the main characters to figure out why they're here. And as it turns out, they communicate using the circular logograms or symbols because to them, time is circular. It's not linear in terms of past, present, and future. They see all of those things at the same time. So they use the symbol at some point to communicate. When asked the question of why they're here, they offer this symbol, and those in the military industrial complex interpret it as meaning weapon. They are here to offer a weapon, and they're encouraging the main character, Louise Banks, who's the linguist, to use this as a weapon. But she realizes at some point, because she's a linguist, language is really complicated and they're trying to learn a new language. So it could mean weapon, but it could mean a tool. And in this case, it's a tool for communicating through time so that they can help each other in the future. I know I've really spent a lot of time talking about this one question, but it's a really great movie and it's a really beautiful movie. I would encourage everyone to see. Have you seen this movie, Morris, Andrea, Tot? Did you have any thoughts on it? Any interesting takeaway lessons, impressions to share
I
with
didn't
viewers?
think it was a horror movie at all, but it was dealing with another civilization that was very different from ours. And we have trouble getting our heads around that.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
not put this movie in the horror film genre, but I picked it here specifically because, as you said, it really is about how we respond to things we don't understand, oftentimes with fear. Were you going to say something, Andrea?
Yeah, I was gonna say I love the movie. It's still one of my favorites to watch over and over again. Yeah, just the themes are really cool, and less about the people in it, but more around the ET themes and the humanity around how the fear between the different continents and parties. But also the always amused by North American movies that are very U.S. centric. How the U.S. comes and saves the world, and we figure it out, and we go to this conference, and we get the Chinese minister to tell us their secrets, and we will. It's very amusing to me to watch it as a Canadian, to just be like, yes, of course, yes, all right, child, yes, 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 you are the best. You figured it out first. You are the international winner of all the prizes.
We're an
So,
insecure nation. We always need praise,
it's
lots of praise from
it's
the rest
okay.
of the world.
Participation,
Yeah.
you can have all the trophies you want. It's all good.
Yeah.
You guys are the other selves. We're all other selves to each other, so it's all good. But
Well,
yeah,
from a
only
law of
one.
one perspective, and what you were saying, it was interesting that the ships didn't just appear in the U.S. They actually appeared in at least a dozen different countries around the world, and it was largely about how each country learns to overcome their fear and learns to pull together and work together in harmony rather than fear. Have you seen the movie, Tot?
Yeah, also like it. It's just simply mainly of these kind of movies are always like they want to invade us or they're going to give us something and they have something suspicious. I like that one, like it
Yeah.
really leave you in a neutral state.
Nice. It does turn the alien invasion movie genre on its head a bit, and that's definitely something I appreciated. So, thank everyone for being here. Panelists, thank you as always for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. To all our friends at L&L Research, thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. And to you who are watching this on video at some time in the near or perhaps very distant future. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. We are sending you our love light, and we are indeed receiving yours. Until next time, in the love and light of the one infinite creator, Adonai, namaste. Love y'all.